I guess when you talk about making YouTube videos, because a lot of people make those, and if you are doing things visually like color correction, the audio equivalent of that is equalization. So enhancing the sound to sound as you want it to, or as it should sound. And that could be removing some of that lower end frequency, maybe to make your voices clearer, is probably the main one, is just to enhance the sound of the voice if it's just you talking to camera. So that's kind of the equivalent of color correction, you're right? Correcting the sound of the audio so it sounds like it should, or for creative purposes like you want it to sound. That and compression is probably the two main tools and techniques you want to use on just about any audio recording. Following that, I guess, in terms of, I'm just thinking about very simple recordings, you might use things like reverb. Now, if it was just you talking to camera, it probably wouldn't make much sense to layer on this big reverb like you're talking in an auditorium or something. But maybe for, I know when I'm, say, creating a radio commercial, we'll quite often use reverb as a creative effect. Can't think of a specific example, but we want to put a voice in a different space. If you record in a very tight sounding sound booth where you've got a very dead sound, that allows you to then create a tool like reverb to suddenly put that voice in a different space. So I can record something in a voiceover booth, but then I can, using reverb, I could make that voice sound like it was someone talking in a kitchen, or by having that very roomy kind of natural sound. And then you could probably layer in some sound effects of someone doing dishes, and suddenly that person in a voiceover booth has been audibly transported into a different room. So probably reverb is the next thing I use there in terms of a creative tool as to moving a sound into a different space. I guess some people don't often think about that when they have an ad on the radio and it sounds like two people talking in a cafe. Pretty sure those people were never in a cafe. They were in a voiceover recording studio. They've layered in some sound effects of a cafe. Maybe they put a little bit of a room kind of reverb on them to sort of put them in a more open space. Never use special effects or sound effects for the sake of having them in there, unless your content is so bad it needs to be held up by gimmicks, which I would hope they wouldn't need to be. Think about what you want to achieve, what your kind of the sound you want is, your brand, if you like, and you don't need to do anything fancy in terms of audio to make it sound great. Just using some of those really basics, getting a good recording to start with, using equalization, using compression, making sure your levels are consistent, all thumbs up. Anything from there is kind of next level, and you may not need to go there. With an interview like this one, where you're recording the audio from basically two sources, you've got the microphone on the camera and you've got the lapel here. When you take that back to edit it, listen to what's the better recording. If the recording from the microphone on the camera sounds nice, clean, fine. However you find the lapel, I would think that maybe the lapel would be more of a tighter recording, less kind of roomy sounding. Like if I clap my hands like that, probably on the, I should clap them up here. Clap my hands like that, the camera microphone, you're probably going to pick up a little bit of that reflection from the room, whereas on the lapel mic, you're not going to hear that sound coming back off the wall so much. Listen to what's the better recording. If, however, you found that during this interview I moved around a lot and you've got a lot of shirt noise or something on there, you probably wouldn't go there. Probably guessing the two recordings will sound quite different because the lapel's right next to me and the camera mic is over there. Just listen to what the best recording is. You may find they're both quite good, but the sound you get off the camera, it maybe just needs a little bit of equalization, make the voice cut through, or make sure there's no unwanted sort of sound. I'm hoping that I'm speaking at a very consistent level. I mean, a lot of people will go straight to, just normalize it. It's preset in just about every audio editing software. Normalize, which means just bring the everything up to 0 dB. What you might find though is, because we have those highs and lows, normalizing doesn't always help. Maybe a little bit of compression would just help. Even if it's just the smallest amount, it might just help with the consistency of sound. I'd always consider it after I've done some equalization. If I had to do any noise removal, I would perhaps look at doing that first. Maybe that also encompasses doing some equalization to get rid of some of those low end frequencies or whatever. A road 50 meters from here, large trucks drove by and there was just that low end rumble of trucks or whatever. You might be able to use EQ to get rid of that, but I'd use the equalization and then I'd do the compression. And the reason I do it in that order is because equalization can change your volume levels at different frequencies. So then I'd use the compression to just basically push all that back down into a much more consistent sound.
Thank you very much for watching. If you really enjoyed this, please press the thumbs up and subscribe. There's going to be heaps and heaps and heaps of more information coming onto the channel. Stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.